Senator from West Virginia.
Mr. President, I'd like to ask to vitiate the quorum call.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today to highlight the 6-month anniversary of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. And I'd like to illustrate what it's meant to the people of West Virginia since President Trump signed this into law. And really, I'd like to talk about, in a larger sense, too, what a difference it's made in this country. We see it in the news every single day, and the benefits are really undeniable. Since Congress passed tax reform, we've seen incredible job creation, more than 1 million jobs, to be exact. We've seen unemployment drop to historic lows, and wages are on the rise. Our small businesses and their employees are feeling optimistic again. When I travel through the state and talk to our small businesses, there's a real hop in the step of our small businesses because of their increased business, because of their ability to expand things that they've wanted to do for years. So it really has been an incredible transformation. Only a few days ago, a CNBC News survey showed that 54% of Americans say the economy is, quote, good or excellent. Good or excellent. That's the highest percentage that's ever been recorded in the 10 years that CNBC has been doing this survey. But even more important are the number of stories that I've heard that have transpired since we passed tax reform. In letters, in meetings, everywhere around town, I've heard from West Virginians who are feeling the positive effects of tax reform. Our small businesses have been able to expand and hire new employees and give back to their employees, whether in the form of bonuses or into their communities with more charitable donations. Others have been able to create jobs and hire more workers. Just this month, I received a letter from a constituent, Chris from Charleston, who owns an eye consulting business. Chris wrote that Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is, quote, legislation that has benefited small business owners all across the country and our folks back here in West Virginia. He said that as a result of the tax cuts, small businesses have hired more people, raised wages, and expanded opportunities and operations. He considered, that might seem like a small thing. He continued, and talked about the other aspects of the tax cut. He says, that doesn't sound like a tax cut that only caters to the rich and powerful. As each week passes, more and more of our fellow Americans support the new tax code. I hear it from my patients in the office all the time. Well, Chris isn't alone. I've heard from families who are able to cover expenses and invest in their children's education. When President Trump traveled to West Virginia this spring, we spoke to one family, the Farrell family from Huntington. Thanks to tax reform, the Farrells were able to open a 529 savings account for the first time to help support their children in their education. I've heard from families who've been able to afford high-speed internet for the first time. That might sound like a little thing to a lot of people, but it's a big thing to a family, to a child who comes home from school and can't do the homework because they don't have connectivity. Because of that change, one more student in our state is able to complete their homework at home. They no longer have to feel left behind when they get back to school, and that is a powerful thing. But it's not just West Virginia's small businesses and working families who are benefiting from tax reform. In our state, these benefits have improved our entire communities. During President Trump's roundtable again in West Virginia, we also heard from Tony, who is a rural mail carrier. Tony and his wife, Jessica, live in Hurricane, West Virginia, with their 2 sons. Tony explained that because of tax reform, their family was not only able to make home improvements, but they were also able to make more charitable contributions. Specifically, they took extra money that they had that they're seeing on their paychecks and gave it back to their church, specifically for the faith-based initiative that has been a very successful resource in fighting the opioid epidemic that we see throughout our state. It's no secret that this opioid epidemic is severely damaging and having devastating consequences in our state with our communities and our families. But because of tax cuts and Tony and Jessica's generosity, at least one community has extra support that can be used to fight back against the drug crisis. And I know this is not an isolated incident, but it's one that illustrates a very important point. Tax reform is making real and meaningful change in West Virginia and across the country. That is certainly not crumbs to us in the Mountain State. And just think, it's only been 6 months. Only 6 months, and already 4 million workers have received bonuses across the country. Consumer confidence is at an all-time 18-year high. 102 utility companies have cut their rates. And think of what that does for the folks at the lower end of the economic scale. When your power bill is $50 or $100 less, or even $25 less a month, that makes a difference. That makes a real difference. And more than 8,000 low-income communities have been designated as opportunity zones. I'm excited to see what else is ahead for the state of West Virginia and all Americans thanks to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. I'm excited to continue building on the incredible momentum that we have created. And I'm excited to continue delivering pro-growth solutions that will help improve lives all across this country.